There was a real powerful conversation, and it's the why of World War II. Later in the war, when, the American public is so tired of World War II, it's 845, and the Germans didn't give up until May of 45. Hitler dies, and his birthday is April 20th. He dies a couple weeks later or a week later or something like that. Or he kills himself, and there's a long story about that issue, but he, supposedly kills himself, and then they keep fighting hard and in the streets. And they don't give up until May, or early May. The Japanese don't give up after two nuclear weapons are dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they don't give up until like days later, until September something. I'm blanking the date off the top of my head. And when you understand the American public is so tired of this, do you feel the same way? They're tired of this. And they're asking the when and the hows. Okay? So the real answer is the who's. So the who's and the why's. There are 3 points that have to be addressed in the EBS. Now the EBS, Emergency Broadcast Signal, it was done by Kennedy in the 60s. Interesting point. So JFK Sr. is processing this response. And he wants to get it out through 2 main sources. And he picks the mainstream media. So he's thinking about TV and radio. Now, he does this because he's trying to go, there's a national emergency, okay? So there's a national response in here, okay? So emergency broadcast signal. So send this big signal, and they have these little towers up there, right? Now, in the 90s, they changed it to EAS, Emergency Action Signal. So they adjusted it so that they could send it out in more of a modern format so they could kind of get it out there. And so they had the more modern way of doing that kind of thing. The emergency action message is what the 17th letter actually talks about in an EAM. Now, how you actually look at this, now I'm going to answer a little of the how, is that you also still have to deal with the main point, the lying media. This is why Trump keeps talking about fake media. And so you have to deal with TV. Now, radio too, but for the most part, you're going to take over that, but that's really the main point. But you also have to do social media, because they have been lying and controlling things. I'm not going to say these names, although I will say Facebook. And so these ones were actually created by DARPA, all 3 of these. That's why they're such gorgeous platforms. So, other ones can't compete with them because of the way the platforms were built. Because they were created by the CIA. And so you have to control these 2 because they lie like candy. They're just eating the lies, or they feed you the lies, and you just keep eating it because you keep asking the wrong questions of the people. And if you would ask the who's and the why's of what happens, this is what they're going to address. So you're saying, I hear these people all the time, well, I don't listen to TV. Well, guess what? They're going to send a signal by internet. You're not going to turn off electricity. You're not going to turn off, anything else. You are going to override these 2 because you got to deal with the liars. Okay? You're not going to turn off the internet. That's just dumb. You're not going to turn off electricity. That's dumb. You'll kill people. You turn them off for a day. Might there be an interruption? Sure, there might be an interruption. Okay, I'm not talking about interruptions for a few hours. I'm talking about when I call it EBS because I'm old school, but the EAM is going to come to your phone. They have reverse 911 calls. It's real interesting that they bombed the towers on 9/11. Okay, but they have reverse 911 calls, so you can get your cell phone out, and they will send you an emergency action message. And it's all about a national emergency. Okay? Now, that gives you some of the background. Now, let's talk about what I believe. Okay, here's predictive. There are 3 basic messages that are incredibly important. What are the 3 messages that I believe you have to address? Number 1 is this idiocy. Can you read that? This was the cover for Nasara. It's also the cover for the devolution. It keeps you in that national emergency for a time frame. And when you're in the national emergency under a time frame, it hijacks the processes of the government. That's why these people are not allowed to come off of this. They don't know why. They're just pushing this fake narrative. You understand the fake narrative. But they're in the national emergency, which says that we can cordon off DC to let the fake president and the fake Congress, who frankly, I don't think one of the reasons why I hate the media is they're not even meeting in the White House. When the fervor came up of the people going, you're not even in the White House, they said, well, we can't put teleprompters in front of the idiot Biden. And I'm going, oh my God. I mean, everyone has seen any movie who the guy sitting there in any movie that you want to come up with. Deep Impact, right? Samuel Jackson, or, well, you guys know. The interesting president, he's sitting there and he's reading the message from a teleprompter. Duh! They can do this. This is not hard. But they can't put him in the White House because he's not there. They were cleaning out the White House. The media knew they weren't there. That's why I don't listen to any of them. Whoever goes there is just lying to you. And it's because of this. So they're not letting them go to the particular places. So this is a cover point, and you have to kill this one. So you're going to kill this one, which stops the national emergency. The second thing that you have to address in the EBS messages is Executive Order 13818. And Executive Order 13818 talks about crimes against humanity. Now, in crimes against humanity, it's not just like he murdered someone. He killed or he stabbed 10 people in Canada or whatever. I mean, we're talking about big situations. This is actually Nuremberg level. This is code for Nuremberg. Now, in the Nuremberg trials in 1946 through 1948, they started to set up a precedence. And the precedence was that people would say, well, Hitler made me do it. No, one of the powerful points that actually occurred about killing the Jews and the undesirables, now they killed 6 million Jews and 5 million undesirables, is they utilized this one point. So that in June of 43, the Germans and the Nazis invaded Russia, or USSR, and they were moving through the towns. And they would move through the town. The Soviets would destroy the town, burn everything that they could, right? But they would kind of leave the people. I mean, because they really couldn't take the people. They didn't care about the people. So it's a long story about how gross, these, when you think about capitalism and communism and all these other isms, they're just all sicknesses, okay? They're part of the corporation stuff. What the Nazis would do is they would come in and they would separate out all the Jews, and they would walk them back, and they would shoot them in pits. And when that was not efficient, they had these gas vans. So they would gas them. And so the guys that were in charge of this were like, we're talking about the Wehrmacht. They were like, we can't do this anymore. I mean, and if they were allowed to get off of that duty and go back and be a frontline soldier. Very clear. The Nuremberg trials actually kind of told you that, hey, listen, if you didn't want to, you didn't have to do this. So when you did it, you made your own personal choice to do this. So when it says crimes against humanity, we're going to take your property. And I'm like, take your property. If you got like Nancy Pelosi, who supposedly has 150 million, which is a bald-faced lie, Pelosi has more than $1 trillion. She is way richer than you understand. And so is all of them, Warren and all the rest of these. These are sickos, okay? I mean, there might not be trillionaires, but they're billionaires many times over. Okay, you have no idea the financial resources of these idiots. And it bothered me for a long time. What this really is saying, and there's like 6 different things. You can't borrow, you can't do this stuff. And when this thing came out in December of 2017, it was already happening to them. What it meant is a bankruptcy event. It was going to bankruptcy all of these idiots. And what you don't know is that from that time frame on, this is not even a year into his presidency. It's got to be like, what, 9 months into his presidency, Trump is already like ripping all of their resources away. Do you know that most of the big time cabal members were like getting divorced? And you heard about like divorces of Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and all these other ones, and you kind of wonder, like, why? He was going to bankrupt them. Now, when you go through bankruptcy, we think about bankruptcy like you lose your property. So they repossess your car, repossess your lands, and they take your but here's what they're going to do. It's deeper because this is military level bankruptcy thing. They seize everything. What do they do with all those resources and the DUMs and everything else? They put it into the Saint Germain Fund. And I want to tell you a code of something. So idiot Biden of the corporation says we're going to like forgive 10% or 20 or 10 or 20,000 of student loans. And everyone's having a hissy fit because the Great Reset, that is Great Reset conversations. And so we're going to forgive them, and then the working man has to pay for it. You're not going to pay for this. Because what happens in here is the Saint Germain Fund, the Saint Germain Fund is the money from these idiots. And they're going to pay and have, sorry, man, I keep writing the wrong. They are going to pay the debt forgiveness. They're going to pay it so deeply, they're going to pay all the debts off. It's because they're going to pay. I mean, it was a code to me. And I started like going, yeah, baby. And people go, why do you get so weird excited over dumb things that we're not seeing? It's because you keep asking the wrong questions. You ask the when and the hows. I'm listening for the whys and the whos. This is the why of the EBS. You have to do an EBS. Don't listen to anyone who says you don't have to do an EBS. You have to. No question. Or EAM. Because these people don't want to tell you the truth. But the military is going to tell you the truth of this thing. So, you have debt forgiveness that comes through the St. Germain Fund because we take it from the cabal through Executive Order 13818. And lastly, you have to deal with, sorry, put it over here. Need to clean the board, don't I? Okay. And lastly, you're going to put it through one major area. Executive Order 13848. And this is election fraud. Why do they hate Mike Lindell? Because he did absolute proof. He proved election fraud. Now, everyone wants to talk about the gorgeous information on 2,000 Mules. You guys know what it is. I'm blanking his name. And what that was talking about is he was talking about voter fraud. And I mean, it was systemic voter fraud. Mike Lindell, they hate his guts because he showed absolute proof. And he showed the election from electoral level. And I have people that get after me because they go, well, why aren't you going to vote I won't vote in the primaries. And I believe that, you had to do it before the primaries. No, there wasn't time yet. Again, it wasn't time yet. And you can't have the midterms. Why can't you have the midterms? And people go, okay, and I go, okay, let's just put it to this way. I know it's not a presidential election, but I want you to catch this 1 second with me. If they turned, and make up a number, let's just say they turned 70 million votes away from Trump. 49 states actually voted for Trump, including California. And if and 80% in 2020 that you didn't know most of the stuff that was happening voted for Trump, and 20% for the moron. And so here's what's happened. The moron that the idiot MSM will tell you about, the polls are like, oh, he's got a 35%, that is 35% of MSNBC, CNN. No, guys, you don't understand. His ratings are like 8% or less. It's single digits, whatever that is. Actually, these guys say that the 4 to 6%ers you can never fix. I would say that idiots' pollings probably are around 4 to 6% of the people probably won't, no matter what you say inside of this, they won't get it. But it's because what they're trying to share with you is this is how they control the money. It's all about the money. This is how they control government. And the EBS is going to share these 3 main points. Now, I know you want to hear about 9/11. I do too. I know you want to hear about JFK Sr., JFK Jr. I know you want to hear about some of the stuff. But these are the foci I believe that we've got to focus on. And in the 3 main elements here, these are the things that I believe are the foci that we have to go after. Afterward, after the EAM, you're going to be able to have water cooler conversations about each one of these things. And you're going to go, what does that mean? What happened? Now, I believe that there's going to be production companies. Now, here's a predictive point. And I believe that I want to do some of that stuff in the future. Production companies that they're going to spend time, forget about the idiotic movies that they want to put out there, the superhero movies. We need to spend time in talking about documentaries. We need to have my son Hunter. You might, I see people saw it's like a B-rated movie. I loved it. It was gorgeous. I mean, I saw it on low definition with this too. But guys, these things are powerful messages, and I think there's so many more messages. Historical documents, that we need to look back. We need to look back at World War I. We need to look back at Korea. We need to look at Vietnam. We need to look at JFK. We need to look at Lincoln, why he died. We need to look at the presidents that were killed and why they were killed. We need to understand that the cabal has been focusing on one area because this thing revolves around one area. That's why some truthers don't understand Nasara, and they don't believe in the debt forgiveness. And the reality is you have to kill the cabal.